Hello, it's David at DSESELECTRIC UK, and this is something of an impromptu video on this fine autumn Sunday morning. Well, I was just a bit bored on this fine autumn Sunday morning, so I thought I'd have a bit of a breakdown of this broken down residual current device, or RCD, otherwise known as a GFCI to our American cousins, a ground fault circuit interrupter, which to me makes a better nomenclature than perhaps RCD, but never mind. So this is a post-mortem, if you will, to see what's going on with this thing, or an autopsy, as our American cousins would say. I don't know why we can't just share more terms in this common language of ours, but there we are, and here we go. Does the world need another video on how RCDs work? I'm quite sure the likes of JW and eFix and Big Clive and all the big names over the years have probably taken one of these things apart and found out how they work. So you don't need me to be doing this. But, well, like I say, it's a fine autumn Sunday morning, and I kind of want to know, out of my own curiosity, while this fella has failed, because it's not very often one comes across a failed RCD. Not failure in this kind of way. I mean, it's latching. Sometimes mechanically they go and you can't latch them. Sometimes you've got some very obvious signs of failure, thermal damage because of a loose connection or something that's gone inside. But this thing looks to be, well, it looks to be serviceable on the outside, on the face of it, so to speak. And what happened was, I was sitting around on my Saturday evening, last evening, doing not very much, watching TV with the wife, when a call came in from somebody close by who said, I've got this problem, my power's tripped off. And I must thank West in the West, familiar name from the comments there, who is based over in Birmingham, and had spoken to this gentleman, taken him through the fault finding process, determined that it was a failure perhaps of the RCD, as opposed to something tripping the RCD. And when this chap said, do you know anybody in Leamington Spa who can come and fix it, my man at West in the West said, yes, give this asshole a ring, you'll be lucky if you catch him sober on a Saturday night. And curiously enough, he did. Now, I don't normally do emergency call outs. I do my 9 to 5 job, and I don't really want to be going out of an evening most of the time. But you know, if a call comes in, if I'm in any kind of fit position to take it on, then I'll take it on. And this sounded like it was perhaps something that was fairly quick and easy to sort out, as indeed it was, because old Charlie over in Birmingham there had correctly identified that it was indeed a failure of the RCD. And as I happened to have 4 or 5 of these other Hagers sitting on the shelf, it was quite straightforward for me to go and change it out. Ordinarily these days, of course, you would go and probably go and retrofit a Type A, seeing as the regulations have got a hard on for Type A these days. These are all Type AC I've got here. But what are you going to do at 7 o'clock on a Saturday night? It's not like you can pop down cities and get yourself a brand new one. So it's just a case of use what you've got, mate. And of course it's no less safe than it was before, at least, so you know, there is that. And the nice thing of course about Hager is, being a Hager, that the stuff you buy these days will still retrofit into the older boards. So this is a more modern version. They stopped making these, you can see the ones with the black button and the rounded test button. They stopped making those probably early 2000s. So boards dating back to the late 90s into the early 2000s tend to have the black tab, and then for whatever reason they decided to have a bit of a redesign. They went for a grey tab, squared off the button, but it's all the same stuff, same rating, same operation. That one works, that one doesn't. Let's have a look at how it doesn't. Continuity tester here, my little TIS Rhino smart meter that I got at a Lex last year. I didn't go to a Lex this year, but this is one of the things I picked up last year. And sure enough, with the on button on, there's no continuity on either pole. It was also telling that the test button didn't work when energized. You know what I'm going to do? You know what I'm going to do? I'll tell you what I'm going to bloody do. I'm going to energise this, and we'll have a little play with the test button, shall we, and see if there's any voltage spurting out at the arse end of it. Bear with me. Oh, how about that for a seamless transition, eh? Seamless. Well, I've got this thing now connected up to a live supply. Quite like these. The nice thing about this TIS meter here is it's auto ranging, so I don't have to press any buttons, and it tells me there 247 volts going in. Indeed, nothing at all coming out. and no functionality on the test button either. Of course, RCDs, there's no connection to earth on them, so I haven't connected the CPC there. Let's just unplug that before I start sticking my fingers where they ought not to be. I do remember once going to a customer site. He had no CPC on his lighting. The house predated CPCs on the lighting, so he had no earth on his lighting. And he was asking about having RCD protection put in, and he had some other guy around who apparently was an electrician. One of these one-day wonders, perhaps, but who said, oh, there's no point putting an RCD on if there's no earth. I think there's every point putting a fucking RCD on if there's no earth, mate. But yeah, they're out there dispensing such advice. So yes, although there's no reference to earth there, of course what this thing is looking for is an imbalance between line and neutral, and it will trip off if current is leaking out of the live conductors, because both of these are live conductors. People used to refer to just the brown as being the live conductor, but the brown is the line conductor. Both of these are live conductors because they carry current under normal operation. And if they're all perfectly in sync, in balance, etc., then there shouldn't be any current leaking out anywhere else. But if it is leaking out somewhere else, then that's what trips these things off. Although obviously this one isn't working. I'm going to move this thing, and the reason I got this out is because we were on an EICR at a workshop this week. Ooh, grotty place. Well, you can see from the state of this thing, which is absolutely friggin' filthy. I might actually clean that up because I like these old retro 70s board things. I'm running out of space on my wall of interesting crap, but I might actually clean this up and put it out on there. Obviously a 10 amp 3-phase isolator. What's it got there? 10 amp 554, blah blah blah. I'm just looking to see if it had any kind of date on it. It does mention ratings to BS 5419 1977, so it postdates 1977. So this must have gone in late 70s, early 80s, I'd imagine. Yeah, boy, can you see that? This is what we picked up on our EICR, and I need to get this is my old Hager pokey screwdriver, which is why its insulation is so knackered. Let's have this out. Yeah, how long do you reckon it's been like that? Well, they had this actually on a 32 amp circuit, supplying some milling machine. Obviously these are 10 amp fuses. Let's just go back to my little TIS here. Oh, that fuse actually works. But they put in, don't know why I did that, put in a probably a 30 amp fuse wire. It's quite a thick wire, isn't it? Might be more than 30 amp, which, you know, they've put that across a working fuse, so the current actually has two paths to get down there, so it's yeah, fused even higher in effect than 32 amp. So yeah, that was an interesting find. We took this out because it had single insulation going in, is rated at 10 amps, it's on a 30 amp circuit, well 32 amp circuit actually, and it had been overridden with some fuse wire in a bit of an iffy way. So we said, you know what, all that's got to go if you want it to pass this EICR, and we put in a plastic 32 amp 3-port isolator, which, well, will it still be looking as funky as this in 30 or 40 years time? I doubt it, but yeah, that's a nice thing, isn't it? Let's get that out of the way, because it's absolutely fucking disgusting. Needs a good clean up. I have to get the big wipes on that. Yeah. Speaking of failed things, here's something else. These integral lamps. Look how that one has overheated and turned all sploogey. Nothing's made to last these days. Don't need that anymore. That was just to show a comparison between a more modern looking Hager RCD and an older Hager RCD. And of course the nice thing about Hager is they're bloody everywhere, so they're easy to get hold of, which is probably one of the reasons why they charge so much for their products compared to a lot of other brands. I mean, if it There are so many obsolete boards out there. I've got no idea how this opens up. I might have to get the Dremel on it or something. So many obsolete boards out there, or boards that are a bit unusual or bespoke. Some people, you know, don't like me fitting those SBS ones I put in because you're not going to get parts for that on a Saturday night or indeed on a Monday morning at any wholesaler. But well, you know, that's something to bear in mind, of course, is that if you want to get hold of something easily, then you should go for perhaps a big brand. It's not to say that all brands are like that. Certainly it's harder to get hold of certain Wilex or Eaton products or various other things as well that, you know, that don't just match up to what they're used to. Enough of me jabbering away. I need to figure out how I'm going to open this up. I was expecting some little just some little, what do you call them, rivets that I'd have to drill out, but no, they've made that so that it ain't gonna open up without a fight. I'm going to have to do another seamless transition and get the Dremel across it, I think, and just bastardise the thing open. Oh well, it is what it is.
While I get jiggy with the Dremel, let's have a quick look at how these things work so that we know what we're seeing, if I can ever get into the bloody thing. The line and neutral input terminals on the left pass the two mechanically connected switch contacts. When these contacts are closed through the flicking of the switch, current flows down line, around the iron toroid core that it wraps around, through the load, then back up neutral via an opposing loop around the same core. If the current going out matches the current coming back, then there can be no significant leak, and the magnetic field generated by each loop around the toroid will cancel each other out, leaving the thing working and providing power to the load. However, picture, if you will, a scenario where some absolute asshole comes along who goes and sticks his weenus somewhere he shouldn't. We now have a situation where the current is going down line, around the iron toroid, through the load, and some of it is now not returning via neutral, but instead is travelling down a cartoon magenta shaft, zapping the crabs and spinning around a drooping ball bag, which we thankfully can't see here, before finally escaping down Nigel's legs to physical earth. Despite the danger of this, the fucker still has a smile on his face. Unbelievable! A current of around 50 milliamps coursing through the human body can stop the heart, so RCDs installed for additional protection, at least here in the UK, have a maximum rating of 30 milliamps. Unlike an overcurrent device, such as a breaker, which is built to handle its rated current and will trip somewhere beyond it, the rating on an RCD is the absolute maximum it's designed to allow, and it should trip somewhere below that, although not too far below, as that may make it too sensitive. A 30 mA RCD should trip somewhere between 16 and 30 milliamps in a ramp test. When auto testing, a half current test shouldn't trip it, whereas a full current test should. Although we tend to have higher rated RCDs at the source, I believe the likes of the USA tend to employ localized RCDs rated at 10 milliamps at endpoints such as socket outlets, at least in areas such as bathrooms. If so, such a device ought to trip between 6 and 10 milliamps in testing. In this all too common scenario where Nigel is sticking his wang into household appliances, the amount of electrical current passing down the line wire is no longer equal to what is returning on neutral, and when that leak here gets to between 16 and 30 milliamps, the magnetic fields can't cancel each other out. Instead, a magnetic field now starts growing, and this induces a tiny current in a third winding called the sense coil. This current is detected by the tripping mechanism, which releases, springing open the contacts to cut off the power and end pervert Nigel's sexy fun time with the Breville sandwich toaster or other such kitchen appliances. There's also a test push button which uses a resistor as a dummy load to allow a small current to flow, in this case bypassing the line winding but passing through the neutral winding to introduce an imbalance to test the sense coil and release mechanism. If the device doesn't trip when the test button is pushed, then there may be a fault with the mechanism, or the coil may be saturated by DC leakage from the load. Either way, further investigation is required. Regulation 514.12.2 provides instruction requiring the testing of RCDs using the button to prove satisfactory mechanical operation at least twice a year. Obviously that's going to interrupt power, so don't do it when the other half is trying to watch Coronation Street, or there'll be hell to pay.
Gordon bloody Bennett, it's about an hour since I last turned the camera off. I couldn't find where my bloody Dremel was. Not that it's a real Dremel, it's a Woolworths workshop, and seeing as they closed in 2009, that goes to show how long I've had this and how infrequently I use it. But I thought it might even be at my storage location, so I took a trip all the way out to there in the car, only to eventually find it was right underneath this bloody desk all the time, in the drawer where I chuck tools that I don't use very much. So there you go. But look at that. That is rather marvellous, isn't it? I'm really pleased with how that's turned out. I expected to just smash the shit out of this and then to throw it away, but you know, I'm going to keep that because that's really rather fascinating. It's opened up rather wonderfully. Bit of an effort. I've had to bastardise it to actually get into it. There are 2 screws I found on the back. I found them unfortunately when it was a bit too late and I'd already smashed the shit out of the thing. But I don't know how much they would assist in getting the cover off. Certainly I've taken one out, the other one's still in there and it's holding onto this bit of plastic here because it's got a cover over it. So anyway, never mind, doesn't matter, it's all done now. Let's have a look at the internal, shall we? Currently it's in the on position. We can see, in fact let's get it in the off position. I have rather banjaxed the operation of the thing a bit because if I were going to do this again, and next time I've got a Duff RCD maybe I will, I should have left this structure in place because this needs to be in this sort of position in order for it to operate. It would have been nice if it's still operated properly. Never mind. This is just a Sunday morning thing for shits and giggles. No one had to say it was interesting or informative or even that it will end up as a video. You never know, I might never get around to actually making this into videos. All sorts of things that I don't make into videos after recording them, and this may be one of them, in which case no one's even listening to me right now. But let's have a look at the operation. We've got a power in, power out. We've got the powering goes to a rather nice copper coil there, passes through this affair for arc suppression. That's the term I'm looking for. And if I switch it on, if you watch this space here, you'll see the 2 contacts come together, hopefully. The 2 contacts have joined and that gives us our path all the way through. We pass through on this rather meaty bit of copper through the coil and then out to the output. A few other things to point out while we're here. You can see these fine wires here are the sense coil for the button operation. Speaking of the button operation, the test button, this spring here keeps it sticking out loud and proud from the front face, and once the button pushes down it moves this contact here which connects this resistor, what's that, orange red, this resistor across it to cause it to trip. Let's just have a look at the resistance of the resistor. It'll be 33 something, won't it? Let's take it off continuity. Oh, 3.3k. So 3.3k resistor there. There is a PCB in there with a few discrete components on there, surface mount components, a couple of caps and whatever else. I'm not going to disassemble it any further than that. In terms of why it's failed, well, I mean it all looks perfectly fine in here. And we do actually have continuity now. Thanks to all my messing about. All it is I've determined with my dicking around, you've just cracked connections on the contacts there. They're just worn. And there we go, we've got no connection there now. Look. So we've got nothing going through where there's two contacts have mated. See, there's nothing there, but I get a little bit of a push, just a fraction of a push. Then it goes in. It needs that extra push. So all it is the face of the contacts are worn. You can just see some wear on there, some crap on there, where there's been a bit of an arc, and that's what's caused it to not quite make contact. And because you've got that physical bit of crap on there, it only takes it on one side and needs it on one side, and it'll stop both sides from physically anchoring down. So there wasn't really a lot wrong with that in terms of the overall assembly, other than the fact that the contacts had their day, and that sort of brought an end to it. But a rather lovely thing, and I'm going to keep that, like I say, as a bit of a display piece. Very nice. Here we are once again, ready for our coffee shout-outs, this time in our Submariner Studio. What do you think to the undersea life, Nigel?
Well, I think it's lovely.
Isn't it just?
Yes.
Nature in all its wondrous glory out there.
Absolutely. It's a good view.
Yes, we obviously went to great effort and expense to build our airborne studio. And then we pulled a bit of a Trevor Jacobs on that, didn't we? You know who Trevor Jacobs is?
Isn't he the guy that crashed his aeroplane for YouTube?
Dingus, he crashed his aeroplane for likes on YouTube, yeah. And got grounded by the FAA for doing so. In a similar thing, we were up in the air and rather foolishly, Nigel went and opened a pressurised window in our airborne studio and sucked off the cat.
I did.
If you know what I mean. And the Civil Aviation Authority over here in the UK have grounded us. So at great expense, we've had to build a Submariner Studio. All this is different. The only thing that remains the same is the bloody coffee machine. Everything else has changed.
I think that got sucked out just after the cat, didn't it, Honey?
You tried to throw it out. But I quite like the Starbucks coffees these makes, but Nigel's on the Dolce Disgusto.
He's done a good job of replacing everything.
It does look
almost exactly the same, almost.
Great effort and expense. But enough of this ridiculum. Let us get on to some coffee shout-outs. Nigel, would you like to read out our first name to be read out?
Can't lean forward. Okay, PCC Electrical Services Limited say, keep up the good work, great videos as ever, have a couple of beers on me. Pete in West London.
Good old Pete, and welcome to the Virgin list, Pete, your first contribution. Do we need to be a bit concerned about this leak that's going on here, or is it getting faster, or is it...
Oh, I got it in the eye. I'm not so sure.
You're getting a bit of splashback there. It's perfectly dry over here, but I'm a bit concerned that about the fact that water is coming in. Maybe I didn't gaffer tape up the outside of our underwater studio.
I thought you'd covered it up quite well, but you know.
Right, several rolls of it went out there. The next name to read out is an anonymous coward. Thank you to you. I'm never quite sure with the anonymous cowards whether they've just forgotten to put their name on or not. So apologies if you wanted your name read out, but you didn't put it on there, so we kind of can't. And no message either. But thank you for your contribution. And you can always, you can always, can always fill out the form properly if you want your fucking name read out. We also have another Virgin.
Yeah. Empercell 2004.
Come on, Nigel, keep up.
Enjoying the content. Thanks for the education and the laughs.
I doubt there's been anything educational, and the only thing that's perhaps comedic is Nigel
catching drips.
We have not one, not two, but only 3 whores coming up.
3 hoes. Ho, ho, ho.
And all familiar names to us, starting with Andy Hills.
Andy Hills, not seen anything on the tube for a while, and need my fix of ranty electrical shenanigans.
I apologise, there was a bit of a hiatus over September it was very busy work-wise, very busy in the personal time as well. I had to take one daughter up north to university, one daughter down south to university. A wedding in Devon one weekend, a visit to Falmouth for a family event another weekend. It's all kind of eaten up my editing time. The next name, another whore well known to us, is...
Andy Karouche.
But is it Andy Karouche?
Well, it says it is.
A couple of videos ago, we had Andy Karouche as the only contributor on the coffee shout-outs. But he says that his Mrs. Liz was so impressed that she's making this contribution to say thank you. So this is on her behalf.
Okay.
Thank you, Liz.
Now, does that make Liz a hoe or a virgin?
Good question, yes. Andy Karouche, yes, is on the whores list. Is Liz a virgin? That's what we want to know. If you can send us details, please, Andy, and perhaps some pictures as well. The next one, would it be a video without him?
Mr. Humbug. Of course it wouldn't.
The good old humbuggery. Yes, thank you, Mr. Humbug. Generous as always. And the final name to read out for this one is Kip Hakes from Off of the Internet. Kip says, never change you lovely pair of Luddites. Kip has his own YouTube channel if you'd go and check that out. Maybe I'll remember to put a link in the description, or maybe I'll forget, because, sometimes these things are recorded well out of the way from where the actual video is recorded, and I've completely forgotten what we've said, and I can't be asked to watch you all. I don't know why anybody watches us anyway. So thank you to all of you people there. Kip Hakes, by the way, is a promotion from Virgin to Whore. It's his second contribution, so well done, Kip.
Well done.
I'm afraid there's no going back. Once you're a whore, you're always a whore. Moving on to actual super wanks. We have a blue super wanks in the name of Tony Gascoigne.
Tony Gascoigne.
Good old Tone boy there who says thanks. I think that's what he said anyway. No, thank you, Tony.
Yes,
thank you for your
Tony.
blue super wank contribution via the YourTradeBase platform. I'm trying to get the microphone wet.
The microphone is getting wet, and I'm being very careful.
Okay, a couple of special mentions. First of all, to Andy Curl, who was rather generously
Oh yes,
got me
these
2
are
cigars.
very
from the US
nice,
of A.
aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, look at the packaging
glass.
on that.
I mean, that's not even plastic, is it?
If it is, it's a very thick plastic, but that feels
glass.
like glass. Yeah, so I'm kind of
Beautiful.
reticent to even open them. They're so wonderfully packaged. But Andy went to all the effort of smuggling them out of California back to the UK up his arse, I believe. Now that's a fucking... That's a cigar, isn't it?
It is. Definitely.
I might have to say these for Christmas or something. Okay, now. That's going to finish me off, that is. That's going to kill me in one go.
You'll keel over after that.
But I'm very interested to see how these compare to the things I get from Asda.
I'd be interested in the smell once you unwrap it. See, was it done on the thighs of dusky maidens?
Wow.
Or was it done on the thighs of sweaty hoes?
They don't quite have the health warnings that we have here. There's nothing on that one. This one has a sticker applied after the fact that simply says tobacco use increases the risk of infertility, stillbirth and low birth weight. And that's it.
Well, there you go. You're not planning on having any more kids,
Yeah,
are you?
well, that's it. I'm not going to get pregnant again. I'm not going to make that mistake twice.
No.
So, yes, I'm looking forward to trying those out. Thank you so much for your contribution and for smuggling them in up your arse. Smell that. What does that smell like to you?
Yes.
Does it smell like aeroplane food and dry roasted peanuts? So, yeah, I'm reluctant to open them, but they shall be smoked. We should also say thank you to West in the West.
West in the West.
Who is over in Birmingham. Our man Charlie Charles, who, if it wasn't for him, this video wouldn't be made. Because it was him who said, there's a job you need to go and do, because I can't be asked to do it.
Right, okay.
And that's what resulted in this next video being made. So thank you to West in the West for recommending us, for having the faith in our ability to undertake the work you didn't want to do.
Yes, thanks.
And finally to Marcus, who came out with us on the van for 3 days.
Yes.
I'll say finally.
Nice chap.
Yes, Marcus over in Aylesbury, who came, darkened our doors. I kept going to the pub with him and drinking far too much. Thanks for that, Marcus. Also, thanks to Sammy and Ria for visiting. Your video, as I keep saying, will be started eventually. The video that you requested. Well, let's get the names on the screen of all our generous contributors. Thank you so much for your efforts. It's you we do this shit for. We certainly don't do it for ourselves because we hate each other and we hate making these fucking stupid videos.
Yes.
But onwards and upwards. Well, Nigel, I think the Submariner Studio has been a rather roaring success. I'm really not sure why we didn't think of this before.
I think you're right, yeah. I like it down here. It's nice. As long as that bit of blue tack holds, I think, yeah. Good new home.
Typical Nigel repair.
What's that massive dot on there? Is that... What the hell is that?
Oh my god, it's the really shit shark special effect from the end of Jaws 3D. And it's coming right towards us. Ah!